welcome to the launch event of the Countering Hate Speech initiative in collaboration with the UN. This is an important event, and it is vital for promoting peace, tolerance, and understanding in our diverse society. We're honored to have such a distinguished panel of speakers and supporters with us today.
On behalf of the Ethnic Relations Commission and our partner, United Nations Guyana, I have the honor of extending a warm welcome to you all. On this, the launch of Countering Hate Speech campaign. The launch of this campaign coincides with the UN International Day for Countering Hate Speech, observed globally on June 18th annually. Globally, hate speech takes many forms, whether it be commenting negatively on someone's appearance, making distasteful comments based on a person's race, religion, nationality, disability, political association, or sexual orientation. These and many other categories are often the basis of hate speech. In Guyana, we can all recognize that our nation is generally a peaceful society, fortunate not to be torn by war or unrest. We must also acknowledge that there is still work to be done to ensure we maintain this peaceful status quo. As such, this Countering Hate Speech campaign aims to educate and inform individuals to be more aware that certain words and statements carry negative connotations, which hurt, disrespect, and in some cases lead to violence. We aim to counter negative sentiments with positive words that are respectful and considerate to others. We're excited to share more about this campaign with you. So without further ado, let's get straight into the program. Thank you.
The UN system in Guyana has a long history, almost 2 decades, of collaborating with the Ethnic Relations Commission since the latter was stood up. And I'm proud to be able to continue this engagement with the ERC and to support and to coordinate the support from across the UN system. And I'm absolutely delighted today that on the International Day for Countering Hate Speech that we gathered today to mark the start of this campaign. And I want to thank especially the commissioners, the CEO, and the staff of the ERC for your willingness, for sharing with us day in, day out your work plans, your calendars, your own institutional development plans to share with us in the most transparent and collaborative way so that we can also mobilize to support you in your efforts. Hate speech has been a persistent presence in our societies. Certainly it's not new. But in the increasing access to internet and use of social media has provided additional challenges. That's why in 2019, the UN Secretary General, my boss, launched the UN Strategy and Plan of Action on Hate Speech. And it highlights the UN's continued and ongoing commitment to promote countering hate speech initiatives around the world. Hate speech is a marker. It's a marker of discrimination, abuse, violence, conflict, and even could be a marker of impending crimes against humanity. There is no single international legal definition of what hate speech is, so it's a little different from a lot of the work that the UN does. But our strategy, the United Nations Strategy and Plan of Action, outlines a parameter for hate speech, which is, I quote, any kind of communication in speech, writing, or behavior that attacks or uses pejorative or discriminatory language with reference to a person or a group on the basis of who they are. Hate speech often targets a broad range of groups and people on the basis of aspects of their character that they cannot change: race, ethnicity, religion, belief, or even political affiliation. Regretfully, most times it's women, especially young women, people living with disabilities, sometimes migrants who find themselves at the receiving end of this horrible practice of hate speech. Around the world, the United Nations is supporting governments, universities, local authorities, constitutional entities such as the Ethnic Relations Commission, CSOs, to address hate speech. Much closer to home in this region, in Costa Rica, I was very proud that the United Nations partnered with the President of Costa Rica in developing that country's first action plan to address hate speech. There are currently efforts in Brazil, right next door, to do exactly the same. One issue that keeps coming up when we talk about hate speech is how it links with the freedom of speech. Addressing hate speech does not mean limiting or prohibiting freedom of speech. It means keeping hate speech from escalating, as Gorin, you were saying. It means that making sure that hate speech does not escalate into something more dangerous that is prohibited under international law or is harmful to people that could result in suicides, hostilities, crimes, increased rates of all kinds of problems and social isolation among people. Based on global studies and trends, as I said at the outset, adolescents, young people are most often most affected. As we speak, as we gather here today in New York, member states, I'm sure including Guyana, are meeting in a discussion with youth on the topic of investing in the power of young people in countering and addressing hate speech. The participation of young people, especially girls and young women, indigenous youth, young people from minority communities, LGBTI youth, young people with disabilities, to work with them in creating public and online spaces that are free from hate speech. As I said, I'm absolutely honored and delighted to be able to support the Ethnic Relations Commission. Several parts of the UN system have been supporting, are committed to support this campaign, including, of course, the UN human rights body, OHCHR, but not only. UNICEF, United Nations Development Program, whose representative is here, a UN Refugee Organization, Migration Organization, and UN Women, all through their institutional partnerships with different parts of Guyana and institutions, have tools available to support you. It will be my privilege to coordinate that support and partnership with the ERC under your leadership. We all have a responsibility, a role to play in countering intolerance, prejudice, and stereotypes wherever they're found. And I'm absolutely, again, thrilled to see the fact sheet and the guidance that ERC has published on hate speech. And these are the kinds of things that we hope to promote, again, utilizing the entire toolbox of the United Nations system that is available to you, to the people of Guyana in this effort, in this campaign. And with that, I thank you all.
In Guyana, our enviable peaceful coexistence and tolerance exemplify what is generally desired of a plural society. With our hospitable, diverse people, our rich tapestry of cultures and religions have contributed to the mosaic of identities that define us. Infusion of cultures in Guyana is evident in every aspect of daily life, from our foods, music, and art, to our languages and religious practices. Our country's cultural landscape reflects the myriad influences that have shaped it over centuries, hallmarked by the sharing in each other's religious and traditional observances with great pride. While we can truly be proud of Guyana's rich diversity and its corresponding positive attributes, we must also recognize that, like all plural societies, we are not divine by perfection. Historical legacies of colonialism, slavery, and indentureship has left deep scars, resulting in ethnic tensions and political divides. Through unanimity in Parliament, the Ethnic Relations Commission was established to address some of these challenges, and along with stakeholders, work towards building a more harmonious society. In many ways, our historical and current challenges help to forge a profound sense of resoluteness among all people for the good of society. This needs to be built upon holistically to help foster a more harmonious society. This brings us to the importance of countering hate speech in Guyana's context. As our UN partner has noted, global trends indicate that xenophobia, racism, intolerance, discrimination, and anti-religious hatred are driving hate speech. In Guyana, hate speech primarily targets individuals based on ethnicity, race, and political association, and to a lesser extent, disability and the LGBTQ community. The Ethnic Relations Commission, tasked with promoting harmony and good relations, find it crucial to counter hate speech in our society. Moreover, this campaign is also geared towards the 2025 general elections period to counteract the anticipated spike in hate speech that is usually prevalent during election season. Addressing hate speech has been an ongoing effort at ERC. Over the years, the Commission has established a media monitoring unit and tracks violations on the basis of ethnicity across television, radio, newspapers, and social media. The ERC concurs with the UN findings, as social media notably emerges as the main platform for spreading hate speech, where racially inciting, divisive, hateful, stereotypical, and inflammatory remarks are flagged. In the past year, the ERC has manually monitored and recorded over 134 instances of hate speech, with 103 violations based on race, 7 on religion, and 24 other violations. The Commission has taken significant steps to address these violations through cautionary warnings, mediation, reconciliation, and for severe cases, referral to the Guyana Police Force. Crucially, the ERC has prioritized public education and awareness as a proactive measure to discourage hate speech and foster respect, tolerance, and kindness. The Countering Hate Speech campaign aims to expand these efforts by partnering with UN Guyana to execute this important initiative. Notably, the campaign aligns closely with the ERC's functions as outlined in Article 212D of the Constitution and several other Guyanese laws, including 1. Article 160A1 of the Cybercrime Act, which states that all persons, institutions, or political parties are prohibited from taking any action or advancing, disseminating, or communicating any idea which may result in racial or ethnic division among people. 2. The 202 Amendment Racial Hostility Act 1964, Chapter 2301, which makes it a criminal offense to excite hostility or ill will against persons by reason of their race and prohibits incitement to racial hatred. This can include words spoken, written, or published. 3. The Broadcast Act of 2011 prohibits the use of racial, ethnic, or religious vilification of any individual or group by broadcasting operators. 4. The Representation of the People's Amendment Act No. 1 of 2001 also states that it's a criminal offense for any person to make or publish or cause to be made or publish any statement or take any action that results in or can result in racial or ethnic violence or hatred among people. These laws demonstrate Guyana's significant efforts to deter hate speech. The campaign will sensitize the public on these legal frameworks and the dangers of hate speech. The Conquering Hate Speech campaign will include 1. A widespread social media campaign. The social media campaign is aimed at creating social media content designed to counter hate speech and will sensitize the public on harm associated with such speech while sharing positive messages. The Commission has already engaged public and private stakeholders, youth organizations, among others, and take this opportunity to once again encourage all stakeholders to do their part in supporting this campaign by generating messages that will counter hate speech in all its forms. 2. workshops with youth, social media influencers, and DJs. The workshops will aim to inform and educate stakeholders on the various forms that hate speech can take and how they can play a role in addressing the issue using their wide networks. 3. Enhanced monitoring mechanisms. The ERC has identified 2 suitable software, which are currently being procured, that will aid in the tracking of keywords and terms, that will assist the media monitoring unit in better capturing a wider scope of monitoring than their manual efforts are able to reach. The UN Guyana team is also working towards supporting this through their international partners. 4. Public engagements and awareness sessions. The messages of this campaign will be taken to high traffic areas, such as marketplaces, schools, malls, seawalls, and workplaces to ensure maximum reach of the public. The team has already begun to engage the public, and the response has been very receptive. The Conquering Hate Speech campaign will ensure that people are conscious that freedom of expression comes with an important responsibility to be respectful, tolerant, and mindful of what we communicate. The ERC team will be available to conduct awareness sessions upon request to address those already scheduled. Let's all do our part to say no to hate speech, to advance our efforts to promote harmony and good relations among all. Thank you.
The UN Strategy and Plan of Action on Hate Speech accurately describes hate speech as a menace to democratic values, social stability, and peace. It is no doubt that hate speech is on the rise, and we cannot overlook the potential for harm through incitement, which is created by hate speech. The spread of hate speech is also amplified by the use of digital tools and platforms. Hence, the urgent need and timely launch of this campaign on countering hate speech. To counter hate speech, we must recognize the importance of digital and informational literacy, the education of people on their human rights, and the collaborative effort of governments, United Nations Guyana, civil society organizations, and other partners on countering hate speech. We must also acknowledge the important role of young people in countering hate speech, since they're often targeted through technology and social media platforms. Like Yashim said earlier, I would also like to reiterate the statement made by the UN Secretary General, in which he says, and I quote, "Young people must be part of the solution. Young people, particularly young women and girls, indigenous youth, young people from minority communities, LGBTQI youth, young people with disabilities, is crucial to create public and online spaces free from hate speech." As a disability rights organization, the Guyana Council of Organizations for Persons with Disabilities stands committed and supportive of the work of UN Guyana, the Ethnic Relations Commission, and other partners in countering hate speech. We at GCOPD will also be doing our part to ensure that we counter hate speech both in online and in public spaces. We also want to work to promote true inclusion, tolerance, and peace for all people. Thank you very much.
Today, we gather to mark the United Nations International Day of Countering Hate Speech. This day serves as a poignant reminder of the devastating impact hate speech can have on individuals, communities, and societies as a whole. As private sector leaders, we have a crucial role to play in combating this insidious menace. Hate speech is a poison that can spread quickly, fueling discrimination, violence, and social unrest. It is our collective responsibility to confront and eradicate this scourge. We must recognize that hate speech is not just a matter of individual freedom of expression. but also a threat to the very fabric of our societies. As private sector leaders, we have a unique platform to promote inclusivity, diversity, and respect. We can leverage our influence to create culture of empathy and understanding. We can use our marketing channels, social media, and community outreach programs to spread positive messages and counter hate speech. We also must acknowledge that hate speech is often fueled by systemic inequalities and social injustices. Therefore, we must work towards creating a more and just equitable society where everyone has equal opportunities to thrive. This includes advocating for policies and promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. In conclusion, let us commit to using our collective influences to combat hate speech and promote a culture of respect, empathy, and understanding. Together, we can create a country where everyone can live free from fear and discrimination. Thank you.
When we talk about hate speech, we sometimes don't focus on the fact that we're all equal, regardless of how we look, and regardless of what we believe in, and regardless of where we come from, regardless of what gender we are, it doesn't matter. The fundamental issues for human beings and our constitutions and the UN human rights is about equality, about equal rights, about treating each other with respect and tolerance. And hate speech undermines that, and in some cases can lead to severe conflicts in society and massacres, as we've seen in different parts of the world. It has also led to people being isolated and afraid of who they are and what they are in a society. And I've looked at the fact sheet and I think it's good, and of course social media today makes it quite a challenge to deal with what's posted on the different websites and Facebook and social media. And sometimes I think in Creole and Guyanese we give our mouth too much liberty, as we say. We say we mouth tear. Some of the older people will know what that is, the younger ones might not. And so we give our mouths liberty to say things that really are inappropriate and should not be said. And sometimes I'm not sure if we even believe them, but that we are people that sometimes think we can make rough jokes with each other, and that's okay, but sometimes it's out of order and it should not be said at all. But I want to go back a little bit further. I do believe that the family is the place where values and principles are taught to children. I really do believe that. Too much of what I read in the papers sometimes is about school do this, and government do this, and school do this, and the teachers must do this. Yes, yes, yes. But as families, whether we have a duty, if they're children in our homes, whether ours or others or adopted, to teach values and principles. And what are the values and principles we need to teach our children? That we are equal, that we do respect, that we do tolerate differences. And the foundation is in the home, regardless of how that home is constructed, with a single parent male, a single parent female, it does not matter. And I think that we have been obfuscating the responsibilities of the family in many cases. And that is not to say, well, throw the whole thing at them. But if we want to build a new society that is about respect and tolerance, is about recognizing difference is good, that difference is something exciting, and that our society loves it and will cherish it, that we have to start with values. What are the values we teach our children? What are the values we inculcate in the schools? What do we do in terms of ministries and government agencies and constitutional bodies? We have to be able to deal with that in a much broader spectrum. We had a program dealing with what was called giraffe language and lion language. And this was a whole conflict reconciliation issue with a center called Rosenberg. And we went and dealt with the police and children in different homes and others about recognizing what was giraffe language and what was lion language. The lion language was the one that was aggressive, obviously. And giraffe language was more conciliatory and recognizing that the other person counts. So we tried that experiment in trying to teach people, before you open your mouth and you say what you feel, to think about, pause and think about the other person that you're addressing. It did help in some conflict situations, but our language sometimes becomes very aggressive. And of course, I cannot say that I'm not guilty, because I'm not of hate speech though, but of aggressive language, and that is in the Parliament of Guyana. So I can't pretend that doesn't exist. It does. It does. I'm there in that setting. We should also look at hate speech and how it is expressed and if it is condoned. And so I think that's a new area to add to the ERC in terms of the Parliament and parliamentarians about what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, where we're going in the direction of hate speech or we actually are expressing hate speech to each other. And of course, it's all live stream and the people see it and they recognize that we as MPs are not giving a good example to the rest of society. And so I think that this campaign is very important, it's very timely, but I think we have to look at a variety of interventions that are soft as well as what would lead to penalties, etc. And of course, the realm, the scope of hate speech is very broad. We tend to think of it as ethnicity, religion, strangers amongst us, such as migrants, but it also deals with women. It also deals with women, that the language, the comments about women are derogatory, putting us back 100, 200 years as chattel, and that in some cases has led to reversal of women's rights in some countries. And so we mustn't leave out the gender issue, including those that have gender identities that are different than heterosexuals, for example, persons with disabilities who have been the brunt of many social commentary for a long time, and many times cannot defend themselves. And so I want to support the activity and hope that we can have a constructive, productive campaign to stop hate speech. And I think that comes to each one of us, that when someone makes a comment in our presence that is derogatory or leading to hate speech or is hate speech, that we have the courage at that point to open our mouth and say, no, that's not acceptable. Many of us report that it's unacceptable, but we do nothing about it. And so our duty is one where we have to, wherever we encounter it, to be able to stop it. And that includes on social media, it includes in different settings we may be at, whether it's dinners, whether it's meetings, whether it's conferences, or whether even it is at Parliament. And so I want to thank the ERC for launching the campaign with the UN, and to thank all of you for coming, and let us work towards making Guyana an even more beautiful place, and a place that is diverse culturally, ethnically, gender-wise, religious-wise, and in which we have respect for each other and we treat each other as equals. Thank you.
One of the things that I know that we're working on, if you allow me to add this, is that very soon the ERC is hoping to convene conversations across the country. The intent is to derive what we call, for lack of a better word, a glossary of words that are slangs that we should not say, which we believe doesn't help, not just the elimination of hate speech, but the way how we see each other. And we're hoping that we'll be able to have the buy-in of the communities across the country, because from a cultural standpoint too, some of these things are used, but as our country would have evolved over time, contexts may have changed. And we want to ensure that we can have things that we can say, look, these are things that we consider to be used in the context of Guyana, words and slangs here used in Guyana. My task here is very simple. We have, first of all, this campaign that we're going to unveil at this point. Aspects of the campaign, there will be others that will be added as we go along over time. But this morning we're going to have three things we're going to unveil to you. One is a video, the short video that was done by the University of Guyana Student Society. And we believe, because, and I heard many of the speakers this morning, almost every one of you touched on young people, and the importance of young people and getting them involved in all of this. And so we have this video that was done by the University of Guyana Student Society that we'll unveil. We'll also unveil for lack of a better term, a plaque that has a pledge that we hope that you here this morning can take. The intent of this is that if people were to stand in front of it or hold it in front of them, take a photograph, share it on social media, I think that in itself will be able to spread a very positive message. The previous commission would have done this very effectively, we believe, in the run-up to the 2020 election campaign, where we had leading politicians taking the pledge and sharing it, and we hope that this can be as effective, or hopefully effective, given what we are trying to do here this morning, and to cater for everything else, because we have both the traditional and non-traditional media. We have a selfie board that we want you to take a photograph also, and to share that with your followers and everything else. So those are the three things we're going to unveil here this morning. So let's start with the video.
Each one of us is unique in our backgrounds, cultures, and perspectives.
Our words can uplift and foster harmony.
When we express kindness and understanding to one another, we create a community where everyone feels valued and respected.
Together, we can forge a path towards embracing our unique differences.
We can all build a world where everyone is free to be their authentic selves without fear of judgment or prejudice.
Don't be a bystander. Report hate speech.
Say no to hate speech. Hashtag no hate Guyana. Hashtag love Guyana.
We connect to share ideas and experiences, but hateful words, they can divide. Yes, hateful words, they really do hurt. Together, we can create a kinder, more respectful place for everyone, everywhere. Don't be a bystander. Report hate speech.
Let's use words to build bridges, not walls. Be the change. Speak up for what's right.
Say no to hate speech. Hashtag no hate Guyana. Hashtag love Guyana.